6th. 72% think it's important to investigate Hunter Biden. The results were partisan, though. Only 11% of Democrats think Hunter Biden did anything wrong. 45% of Republicans think it's important to investigate January 6th. The poll also found when it came to social media companies, Facebook has the highest favorable rating with 52%. TikTok has a 40% favorable rating, and Twitter is at 38%. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
5 Louisiana law enforcement officers are facing charges ranging from negligent homicide to malfeasance. The deadly 2019 arrest of black motorist Ronald Green. They said he died in a car wreck following a high-speed police chase, but body camera video later showed the cops actually beat Green, used stun guns on him, and dragged him by his leg shackles. An ex-Texas cop has been convicted in the death of a black woman 3 years ago.
The jury deciding punishment for the former Fort Worth officer opted not to convict for murder, but for a lesser charge.
Verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant Aaron York Dean guilty of the offense of manslaughter.
Dean, in 2019, responded with another officer to a call of the door to Tatiana Jefferson's home being open. Dean fired a shot through a back window, killing Jefferson after he said he saw her holding a gun. During testimony, he admitted to errors in procedure. The jury took 2 days to reach a verdict after weighing evidence of whether Dean knew Jefferson was armed. He could face up to 20 years in prison at sentencing. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Joyce Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands-down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Take Care is moving from its current location at the Baltaj Pavilion to the Century Plaza in Tamuning and will be closed December 23rd through the 30th. If you need any assistance, please call customer service at 671-647-3526 or email customer service at takecareasia.com. Take Care, our island, your health plan.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
I'm getting two audios here. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's delayed.
You have an iPad or an iPhone in there?
I have an iPhone and I've got an iPad, but no audio on either one of them. It's delayed.
There it is.
Yeah.
Let me try something.
All right. Myself, Jose, but
there's sound coming from inside there somewhere. Somewhere. Double the tall tales.
It's not my iPad. It's not my phone. fact, I can't even get Facebook on my phone. I mean, on my iPad. It's coming from the laptop.
I'll come right in.
There must be a speaker there. Well, we got some technical difficulties here. Tailgaters, give us a minute here to fix this up. Tailgaters, give us a minute here to fix this up. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm not talking to myself anymore. Well, at least not talking to myself on the air. I may wait till halftime show to start talking to myself again.
If you start responding, that's when I get concerned.
Really? Okay, so did I go through the Second Amendment, Jose? Not even once, huh?
Not even once.
Right.
Not even twice.
All right. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, one of our 10 Bill of Rights. I talk about that a lot. I talk about the Constitution a lot. I talk about the national government. I talk about the territorial government. I talk about freedom, liberty, living in a free country, good government, bad government, those sorts of things. So if that's what you're interested, bienvenidos, amigos. But if it's not what you're interested in, it's time you kind of got caught up, so you're in the right place. I start the show every day with a feature called Zemi i Kutni. Which has dwindled down from a really interesting feature to stumbling through the humble offerings of the Daily News on its editorial page, which 95% of the time don't match up to the concept of being an editorial. Here's how it goes today. The countdown to Christmas is on, and the shopping madness of these last few days is sure to kick our holiday budgets closer to the red line. And if you're one of the procrastinators, sometimes I think I'm a procrastinator, Jose, but I don't think about it too much. I always try to put off thinking about it. It's probably a little late to get those online shipments in before the big day, but have no fear. Your local small business entrepreneurs, artists, and creators are all around to help ease last-minute shopping. It's not too late to buy a Tailgater shirt. If you got to it right now, it ordinarily takes about a week. You can still make it. You can check out Guam Unique Merchandise Art, Inc. Holiday Marketplace at DFST Galleria in Tumum to see what your up-and-coming entrepreneurs are creating for our unique local market. You can also take a stroll through Micronesia Mall, Chamorro Village, or Guam Premier Outlets to seek out and support your fellow Guamanians working to make their mark on the retail scene. The most important point is shop local, buy local, support local, especially during these last days of this busy retail season. A new year of post-pandemic recovery is just ahead, and it's time for our community to shift gears and find ways to strengthen the local economy from within. This means producing more of our own food and basic necessities, buying more of our locally made products, and most importantly, supporting the efforts of our local businesses of all sizes. For many companies, the 2022 holiday season will impact their financial health and determine if they can continue to operate in the new year, stated Chamber President Catherine Castro. Now, this is the real chamber, not the women's chamber.
Oh, that's confusing because is that Catherine Castro a female?
Catherine Castro is a female.
And she was chosen by the chamber to lead the Chamber of Commerce?
She is the president of the Chamber of Commerce.
Interesting.
And you know what? I have a feeling if she were to join the women's chamber, she couldn't get elected janitor over there.
No.
You know Catherine.
I know Catherine.
Yeah, she's a very, very nice, very smart, very competent person who does not sidle up to all this silliness.
She has principles that might not be compatible.
Exactly, yeah. When you shop from a local company, you support our island because these retailers and restaurants pay business privilege taxes, a percentage of which is used to support our local Department of Ed, government operations, and so much more. And that's the problem, the so much more. I think all they need to do is support government operations. Yeah, I object to paying a tax that does anything other than support government operations. The Daily News encourages all our readers to check out our holiday gift guide by visiting GuamPDN.com, not just for sales, but for more unique local gift ideas. Let's do what we can to strengthen 2023 for Guam by spending our money right here at home with businesses and entrepreneurs who give back so much to all of us all year long. Yeah, so let's see. You make a list. You check it, what, twice?
Thrice?
Yeah, thrice maybe. And you do that so you can find out who's been, no, you can't say that anymore. We have to only look for nice people. We only have to recognize the niceness in people. So it's practically impossible to be naughty anymore if you happen to be a child. Okay, as is my usual custom lately here, because the Post doesn't run an editorial, I'll find something with editorial comment online and read it in their spot. Today it's from PJ Media by Ben Shapiro, if you're familiar with Ben Shapiro. Ben is great. Ben's a deep thinker, an incisive thinker, an analytical thinker, a good writer, good man. The title is The Slippery Slope Never Ends. In 2006, then Senator Joe Biden ranted against the supposed irrelevance of a proposed constitutional amendment to define marriage in federal law as one man, one woman. What a radical idea that was in 2006. Quote, "We already have a law, the Defense of Marriage Act," Biden said. I voted, and others have said, look, marriage is between a man and a woman, and states must respect that. Nobody's violated that law. There's been no challenges to that law. Why do we need a constitutional amendment? Marriage is between a man and a woman.
That was Biden.
That was Biden, yeah. That was then, and this is now. 16 years later, President Biden stood on the lawn of the White House and chortled. I don't know if I know how to, I'd kind of like to know how to chortle. I think that would add something to the show if after I told one of my funny stories, I chortled a bit.
Well, it's shorter than having to spell incontinent.
That's true. You're talking about Biden now, not me,
chortle, right? It means something different, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Biden chortled that he had finally enshrined same-sex marriage into federal law. Quote, "Today's a good day. America takes a vital step toward equality, toward liberty and justice, not just for some, but for everyone." A vital step, not the final step, not the culminating step. A vital step. That's what Shapiro characterized it as. Yeah. The language here is important because it's revealing. Biden and his allies have an agenda that goes far beyond the redefinition of marriage. The agenda is simple: use of government to obliterate traditional values and intermediary social institutions that embody them. Have I issued this warning for the last 4 years? The Frankfurt School and Antonio Gramsci, little Herbert Marcuse. I'll read it again. Biden and his allies have an agenda that goes far beyond the redefinition of marriage. The agenda is simple: use of government to obliterate traditional values and intermediary social institutions that embody them. Biden made this clear in his speech, in which he lumped together opposition to same-sex marriage with racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and transphobia. This is patent nonsense, of course, but it does set the groundwork for actual transgressive agenda to liken traditional views about marriage to pure bigotry. Now, I've run into that already. You know, I've been in places where I've said, you know, I know what the law is, but, you know, the law sometimes, Mr. Dooley said the law is an ass. And marriage is a man and a woman, regardless of what the statute could say it's a man and an elm tree. That wouldn't make it so. You know, we could have a statute that repealed the law of gravity, but if you drop something, it would still fall to the floor. But people, when I've said that, people said, "Bob, you're a bigot." Anyhow, and this will necessitate governmental action against those who believe in marriage. Necessitate governmental action against those who believe in marriage. After all, we as a society don't tolerate racism on the basis of religious freedom. If Christian views about marriage are treated similarly, why should churches maintain their tax-exempt status while discriminating against same-sex weddings? See where this is going, Jose? And it to me, you know, once I understood the Frankfurt School, Antonio Gramsci, neo-Marxism, cultural Marxism, it all fell into place. And these are not isolated events. They're all connected to the same desire to turn America into a Marxist country. You do it by what Gramsci called a long march through the institutions, corrupt the institutions, and you won't have to have the violent revolution that Marx said was so necessary.
And what's crazy is that it's being propagandized on us by people who probably aren't aware of what they're doing, like Biden.
Exactly.
You know, he has people cleaning up his shortles for him daily.
Exactly. And way back in the 1920s, Vladimir Lenin had a name for people like that: useful idiots. People who will go along with the narrative thinking they're doing something good.
Come on, man.
Not understanding what they're really signing up for. Marxism. Let's see. After all, we as a society, if Christian views about marriage are treated similarly, why should churches maintain their tax-exempt status while discriminating against same-sex weddings? Biden went still further. In championing same-sex marriage, he said that America's, quote, need to challenge the hundreds of callous, cynical laws introduced in the States targeting transgender children, terrifying families and criminalizing doctors who get children the care they need.
You're kidding me.
This is the President of the United States.
He absolutely probably doesn't know what he's saying. There's no... wow.
Well, let's hope he doesn't. It would be consistent with the other times he's opened his mouth. But of course, I have a feeling he's not his own speechwriter. Yeah, so you know who has infiltrated the speechwriting department at the White House, right? In other words, if you oppose the hormonal sterilization and surgical mutilation of minors as a pseudo-palliative for gender identity disorder, you are evil, and you must be stopped by force of federal law, what libertarians call state violence. The natural outcome of this agenda will be precisely what Democrats pretend now to oppose: anti-religious discrimination, educational crackdowns, threats to traditional parenting. And make no mistake, they are pretending. They have no rationale for drawing lines to hem in their cultural imperialism. Now, there's a good term. When asked by CBS News correspondent Steve Portnoy, who no doubt had a complaint right after the interview, whether protections for religious practice were codifying discrimination, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre answered, "I can't answer that because of the Hatch Act." No, not this time. That's her default answer. This was her answer. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. There's always more work to do. So, you know, this defense of marriage, there's still more work to do. In the early 90s, Democrats denied they wanted civil unions. They were lying. In the mid-2000s, Democrats denied they wanted same-sex marriage. They were lying. Now Democrats say they don't want religious discrimination or educational indoctrination. They are lying. In the end, what transgressives want is simple: a national state that stands as the god of a new moral system and atomized individuals without recourse to intermediary institutions of community or civil society. And if the Republicans who voted for the Orwellian Respect for Marriage Act think they have bought respite from the predations of the left by signing on to an erstwhile compromise, they will soon learn the error of their ways. You know, you give in to them. That doesn't satisfy them. It just makes them hungrier. Okay, nice piece here by Ben Shapiro, as usual. All right, Jose, let's take a short break and we'll go to the card.
Christmas is a very special time, but it can also be a very hard time. For the foster children Harvest House serves, it can be difficult and painful being away from their families and siblings. During Harvest House's Christmas celebration event, we hope that siblings living in different foster homes can join together to share in Christmas joy. We need your help to provide all 600 plus foster children with Christmas gifts. Help us make this a memorable Christmas for each of them. Harvest House will be accepting gifts until December 14th. Contact us at 300-5433 or email harvest.house@hbcguam.net if you have questions or want a suggested gift list. That's 300-5433 or email harvest.house@hbcguam.net.
All 3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pika's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizava. Put the power of Pika's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pika's Best listeners with Pika's Best Broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pika's Best.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Jose, I just got to talk for a minute here about the distribution of our international radio listening audience. I've got a post here from Mesa. You probably saw it, right? Yeah. Hello, Mr. Bob. Please say hi to your wife for us. Happy Friday of the 3rd week in Advent. Tom and Maria Mesa from Pensacola, Florida. A really, really nice couple that we met at the Catholic Identity Conference in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
Yeah, great folks. We sat together throughout the whole conference. We shared a lot of our thoughts, found out he had an awful lot in common. And I had a feeling that Tom, my husband, probably both of them, were tailgaters, even though they never listened to the show. So, yeah, this will all sound very familiar to them, I think. Anyhow, Mesa, I will say hello to my child. Well, actually, I know she's listening right now. So, honey, you heard the message. So, hello from Pensacola. Okay, so let's get down to the card. I'm going to finish up Maneka versus Babies from yesterday. And, with the caveat that, I give Maneka time, even though I don't think she's ever been right about anything. But that's kind of the reason that I read
Not
her
in print.
No. And then we've got Holly Rustin versus Vanessa Williams. Now, I didn't think anybody could top Vanessa Williams and her callousness, but I think Holly Rustin has done it.
When I read that, I was like, she has a contrary? But no, she just went one step higher.
Uh-huh. And then we've got Doug Moylan versus Aliens. More David Lohan versus Chief Ignacio. We've got the BJ inaugural, GRMC versus doctor shortage. Are you listening, Tom, out there back in Pensacola? Pacific Island Times versus corruption, which is a long book that I started. I'm going to take it piecemeal because there's so much there. We've got the Feds versus Jack Dorsey, FBI versus free speech, Virginia Tech versus the First Amendment, Wichita State versus biology, Kenyon College versus education, Dave Sablon versus pro-abortion Catholics in quotation marks. Obviously, I won't get anywhere near close to finishing the calendar, but I'll have a good start on Monday, won't I, in case things die down over the weekend. Okay, we start out with Zeme Ikotny. And once again, I'll show you the picture. There's a platter of rice there that's obviously orange. But Paul Zerzan wrote a letter to the editor of the Daily News saying, it's time we stop calling the rice we serve at fiestas red rice, because it ain't red. It's orange. We just look stupid by calling something that's orange red. And the Daily News came lashing back 3 days later saying, leave our red rice alone. And they canceled him. So I use this from time to time as a good depiction of the narrative. The truth is, the facts are that the rice is orange. The narrative is that it's red. And we run into that all the time. The truth is that if you're born with an X and Y chromosome, no matter how much surgery is done on your external plumbing, you're going to be a man the rest of your, well, you're going to be a male the rest of your, you might not ever be a man, but you'll be a male the rest of your life. That's the truth. The narrative is that if you really want to be a woman, you can be a woman. In fact, you are a woman. So you can see the utility of the occasional reference to systemic racism. Okay, picking up on Maneka. Maneka wants people to vote no on Bill 291. And I'm going to pick up with the third paragraph. I think I read the first two yesterday. And the most vulnerable in our islands and across the world are poor women, girls, and those who transcend the gender binary. Women who transcend the gender binary. That is, women who pretend they're men.
Okay.
Translation. Yeah. Transphobia, I think, is the fear that people will translate all of this language into English so that people know what they're talking about. People who transcend the gender binary. Bill 291 inexplicably threatens this demographics' ability to make informed medical decisions about their bodies and their future. Today, nearly 1 in 4 women on Guam live in poverty. According to the 2022 Guam Recovery Research Project, Chamorro women under the age of 40 were the most adversely impacted by the pandemic. The impact has fallen hardest on communities that already face significant barriers to accessing health care, including Black and brown communities and people living on low incomes, according to 2022 data from the Center for Reproductive Rights. Now, once again, translation is important. You know what reproductive right means?
Abortion.
Abortion on demand.
Demand.
That's how that translates into English.
Where is the data on how many women wore polka dot hosiery in the year 2022? Because it's just as relevant.
It is, yeah. Reproductive rights and access to contraceptives directly correlate to a community's socio-economic well-being. I wonder if Woke Parkinson's listening here. Soon-to-be Senator Woke Parkinson, who thinks that socio-economic status is the governing factor when it comes to setting salaries. Good and effective leadership unites people. Bill 291 explicitly encourages neighbors, friends, coworkers, family members, etc., to turn on each other. If this becomes law, private citizens can sue those suspected of aiding and abetting an abortion for up to $10,000. Bill 291 encourages gossiping, spying, and snitching if there is the slightest chance that someone we know is helping someone else to end a pregnancy. Oh my goodness, gossiping, snitching, spying. Just think of the legal, financial, and psychological harm this bill's potential is. Just thinking of the legal, financial, and psychological harm this bill's potential is shocking. Why would any lawmaker want to create, advance, and vote for legislation that knowingly creates fear and division? Ask Joe Biden. I respect the 2 women leaders that introduced and sponsored 291. Amanda Shelton has championed the transition to renewable energy, so she's not all that bad. Senator Nelson has stood strong in protecting sacred ancestral sites from destruction associated with a military buildup. We live in small island communities, and we do not have to agree with each other all the time to exist respectfully and peacefully. Leaders make mistakes. Bill 291 is a drastic mistake. This and any future legislation that actively harms women, incites division inadvertently, and increases poverty needs to be shut down. I urge the community to call on all lawmakers to oppose Bill 291. Yeah, so that's Maneka, and
I expect to get a phone call from another Joe.
Yeah, well, you know, anytime Maneka takes a position, you can't go wrong in being a contrarian. I think she actually had a correct opinion on something once. But, you know, given my advanced age and sometimes absent-mindedness, I'm not going to say that's a fact. I might be back into red rice territory here. Okay, next we've got Holly Ruskin versus Vanessa Williams. Now, let's go back to Vanessa and her statement that was so memorable. It's been memorialized in the annals of Tall Tales. Here's what Vanessa said. It is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. You know, we may be looking for a job. We may have starting a new job. Maybe we're going to go on vacation. Maybe mother's sick. Any one of a number of things, you know, could interdict having a child because it's impossible to separate the choices. That's what Vanessa said. And I thought that was pretty good until I read Holly Ruskin's letter to the editor, and now I see a rivalry here between Holly Ruskin and Vanessa Williams to see who can be the most evil. And here it goes. With many major flaws of Bill 291, there are still outstanding and unprecedented issues that haven't been addressed yet. Thank God for Holly Ruskin. Now, to refresh your recollection, Holly Ruskin was the president of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. A little sexism there, right? The Women's Chamber of Commerce, when the legislature passed a bill to give any women-owned, operated company a 5% set-off against in all government bidding for government contracts. Remember that? That was something. But Holly's testimony at the public hearing on that bill really really took the cake. Holly said, "It's time you give us this 5% set-off to level the playing field." So apparently the playing field for women is only level when it's slanted in their favor.
It's only level when it's slanted.
Exactly. If it's level, then it's not level.
No merit there whatsoever.
No, none whatsoever. And, I looked up the word that's the opposite of misogyny, and I already forgot it. Do you remember it, Jose?
No, I don't remember it.
Yeah, I bet you can come up with it in a minute, huh? Because when you're starting to talk about the women's chamber and some of the positions they take, I should have had that. I should have written that word down on this paper I'm looking at. So Holly starts out by saying, with the many major flaws of Bill 291, there are outstanding and unprecedented issues that haven't been addressed yet. As a single working mother, why these haven't been addressed literally blows my mind. I think she needs a flak jacket for her mind.
Or get her face away from that fan.
Yeah. Blows my mind. Have you ever seen those little, real small firecrackers called ladyfingers? Yeah. Well, anyhow.
Misandry?
Misandry, yeah. Misandry, that's it. Yeah, I got to write that down. Yeah, the Women's Chamber of Commerce and misandry.
Shouldn't that be Mr. Angie?
Probably. I wonder if Andrew Bainham ever uses that term. Yeah, Miss Andrew. It almost sounds like something that they would adopt. His dead name is Andrew before he transitioned. Now, yeah, anyhow. As a working single mother, why these haven't been addressed literally blows my mind, as they are job descriptions of senators. They should know what blows Holly's mind. Come on, you guys. Senator job number 1, represent constituents. The overwhelming majority of people in Guam do not want senators to make this decision for them, regardless of their personal beliefs on abortion. Upon a poll during the election, 74% of Guam voters believe that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. Now, this is done by somebody called Anthology Research, and it's the first time I've heard of it. In May 2022, when this issue was brought to a public hearing, only 284 community members submitted testimonials in support of Bill 291, whereas 881 submitted testimony and letters in opposition to it. Now, Holly's going to tell us how many of the 881 were fill-in-the-blank form letters and how many of them came from off-island, but doesn't matter. Some of the testimony requested roundtable sessions to consult experts. Yeah. And you'll remember staff at the legislature took quite a beating from the pro-aborts because the speaker and committee chairman wouldn't set up the roundtable meetings. So why have senators not consulted in public forums with medical experts, business leaders, economists, socioeconomic experts, nonprofit organizations, or people with lived experience? Well, the reason is that the way that the legislature consults with the public is we have a statute that says you can't enact a bill unless it's at a public hearing. And how many nights in a row did they have hearings on this bill? Yeah, 2 nights in a row. So anybody who wanted to be heard had the chance to be heard. So as far as job number 1, this is absolutely a failure to do your jobs. So job number 1, according to Holly, is represent constituents. In other words, you are sort of like a telephone line. You take input from your constituents. You don't have to exercise any judgment, analysis, no thought process on your own. If 884 people say they don't want it, that's it. Game over. Senator job number 2, oversight of the budget. There's no funding attached to this bill. No senator has proposed setting aside funding to support the legal judgment from this bill. In fact, the only talk of funding in this bill is one to collect a bounty. Holly, go back and read the bill. Yeah, if you're going to write a letter to the editor, your first job is to know what you're talking about.
That doesn't matter, though, Bob.
No, it doesn't. It's the narrative that counts.
Because she's counting on the reader to not know what she's talking about either, but agreeing anyways.
Exactly. And besides that, it's the narrative, not the facts or the truth. Yeah. So, if you read the bill, you'll see that it won't cost the government a nickel. And, of course, that's the workaround part of it. It was pre-Dobbs, and in order to have any impact on abortion in Texas, a very imaginative draftsman came up with this idea to set up civil liability for those who participate in the nasty practice of abortion and allow anyone who wants to would have a claim against the pro-aborts and could recover $10,000. But it deliberately left state actors out because if you have a state actor, you're going to run into pre-Dobbs, you'd run into an injunction enforcing a constitutional right. Right? Yeah. So, boy, oh boy. So there would be absolutely no reason to spend any money on this at all. And I've explained more than once that if you put an appropriation in a bill, regardless of what the bill deals with, it goes to the committee that handles appropriations, not to the substantive committee. So so far we've got 2 points, and she's been dead wrong on both, especially the second. there might be a little argument about what the proper role of a senator is, or point number one. Ask yourself this question. When you vote for somebody, do you want him to be responsive to the electorate as far as he can tell by with putting his finger in his mouth and sticking it up in the air and seeing which way the wind blows? Or do you want him to be a man of conscience and principle and vote his conscience and principle when he's gone, when he's elected to the legislature? Now, the second one, I think, would be very important, provided that the senator campaigned on his conscience and principle, so there weren't any surprises once he or she or they were elected. With inflation up, rent prices skyrocketing, and crime increasing on the island, socioeconomic concerns are extremely high. Now, here we go. This is where she tops Vanessa. You know, Vanessa winds up and throws her fastball, and Holly not only hits it, she hits it out of the park. Research shows that mothers in Guam are the most marginalized. 17% of single mothers has the highest rate of rape and high teen pregnancy rates. Having a baby in Guam is easily 10,000 or more with pregnancy care and delivery.
Wow.
That's just to have the baby.
That
right?
sounds like familiar language from somebody we know up at the Adeloop.
Uh-huh. It does, like the Lou Leon. By the way, folks, we can't do the Lou Leon Guerrero show today. We're still having technical difficulties, but when we do, I'm going to get this out and read it again because it's so appropriate. Okay, $10,000, and that's just to have the baby, for crying out loud. Healthcare is another huge expense. Diapers, food, a crib, childcare, taking days off work to tend sick children, etc., are all costs. The real costs are bigger than that. Boy, I've known mothers, and been one myself, who have passed up jobs with higher wages or promotions because the reality is that it's more important to be able to have flexibility to leave work at 3 p.m. to pick up their kids from school.
I hope her child doesn't read this.
Yeah.
What a way to find out that you really were not really
just a bird
desired.
Yeah. These systemic issues, now these are not personal issues.
Have reproduction a systemic issue?
It's a systemic issue. And of course, since we've heard the word systemic racism, that's one of those words you got to include at least once a paragraph. Something's got to be a systemic problem. These systemic issues are reasons why many people are put in the situation to even consider having an abortion. Wow. They can't even imagine how they could have one more child. There is just not enough support.
You know, you're right. This does need to be read alongside the Lou Leon Guerrero testimony, because why stop at abortion?
Exactly. Yeah.
They're putting out a solution right here for all the ills of society.
Yeah. Yeah, just have an account, debits and credits, you know, and when the debits get too high, infanticide or childicide, if there is such a word, if the kid gets to be too expensive. Before we can even talk about moral views.
She's going to?
but you got to get to the important stuff first, you know, what I want to do, me, my life, what's good for me, etc. The choices, the impossible choices that Vanessa Williams alludes to. Before we can even talk about the different moral views on pro-life or pro-choice, senators need to address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, Holly, is the fact that all of you pro-aborts will not sign up for the fact that you're murdering children that women who have abortions are murdering children. And that's the elephant in the room.
This is language that incites abortion.
Exactly. Yeah, so the elephant in the room, that they've invented an entire new vocabulary to hold at bay, is what keeps that elephant kind of quiet. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to Holly Ruskin.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas loan with an annual percentage interest rate as low as 5.99% and up to $50,000. And with the Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you can have the flexibility of using your money when you want to, where you want to. My Christmas loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas merrier. Member FDIC, equal opportunity lender. Credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Yeah, so Holly Ruskin, it's really a matter of dollars and cents. The elephant in the room.
I have to say, I didn't really think that she could top Vanessa Williams' statement.
Yeah.
This is above and beyond that.
It really is. Let me see the elephant in the room here. Yeah, before we can even talk about the differing moral views on profile or on pro-life or pro-choice, senators need to address the elephant in the room, helping mothers. Funding needs to be allocated before we discuss positions on abortion. 1, free health care for pregnant mothers and nursing mothers. Now, if free health care to them means a free abortion, that's what they mean by health care, yeah.
Because they call it reproductive rights.
Uh-huh. And I've seen them, they use that term, free health. Yeah, well, women's health care is really important. That's why we have to have abortion on demand.
Cancer screening? Oh, no, we don't do that.
Number 2, free health care for infants and children until they reach 18 years old, if they're lucky enough to make it out of the womb. Access to free birth control. More funding and programs allocated towards foster care programs. More funding for programs that work with the community to prevent rape, incest, and abuse. Currently, most programs only provide services for victims and do not fund prevention programs that work with boys and men to stop the cycle of violence. Hey, those guys over at the real Chamber of Commerce, those men. The reason that the Women's Chamber had to start their own.
How dare you?
Yeah. Funding for rehabilitation programs for those convicted of rape, incest, and abuse. How does that work?
Rehabilitation?
Yeah. More work to secure child support payments for single moms, and if support doesn't come through, stipends prepared by the government. I want to send this off to Ben Shapiro, because it's right in line with exactly what he's talking about. Don't expect a man and a woman to take care of the child that they bring into the world. It's not their responsibility. It's the government's responsibility.
Is anywhere on that list fathers' responsibilities?
Nope.
Or making
maybe child support payments.
Well,
yeah. Funded maternity leave programs for working mothers, fiscal literacy programs, and more training to empower mothers. But the point, that is the point, that, You know, I used to know how it worked. Back in the day, back in the 1930s, when my mother wasn't enlightened enough to understand that she could have had an abortion instead of me. I'm not going to say anything there. May she rest in peace. Yeah, she wasn't enlightened enough to know that. And my dad wasn't enlightened enough to know that he could have married a man instead of my mother. And back in those days, we kind of had it figured out. A man and a woman would get together, decided that they had some affection for one another, go through this ceremony called marriage, oftentimes a religious ceremony. They would live together. They would have children. They would raise their children. They would teach their children to have important moral values, and the children would repeat the cycle. And that's the way the human race has functioned for a long time.
That's life.
That is life.
I mean, honestly, if all of these problems were solved by abortion, you would think after 1972 we would have eradicated all these issues she's talking about.
Yeah.
Because it was out there. What was it, 400 million? What's the number of babies
worldwide?
aborted?
Yeah. I know it's over 60 million.
Or 60 million in the U.S.
In the U.S.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, this is not, Holly is not an isolated incident. She's just another useful idiot going back to the Frankfurt School, Antonio Gramsci, etc. We got a break for the big halftime show, and I'll come back to and finish up with Holly.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Buying more time. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Senate voting 71-19 to approve a one-week extension to government spending authority.
As negotiators continue working behind the scenes on a much broader bill, a more than $1.5 trillion package that would fund the full government through September.
Fox's Jared Halpern. The Senate has also approved $850 billion in defense spending.
The bill authorizes a 4.6% pay increase for military service members, directs more funding and military aid for Ukraine and Taiwan, and would do away with the military's COVID-19 vaccine mandate, a provision Republican lawmakers have pushed for. It passed the House in a 350-80 vote last week and heads to President Biden to sign into law just before the year-end deadline.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin reports the Senate rejected an amendment to return to active duty service persons who were discharged for refusing the COVID vaccine. COVID deaths are trending upwards again.
So far nationally, in our analysis of the data, death numbers are just beginning to rise. We obviously want to make sure that does not go any further.
White House COVID response coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha also announcing the government is once again offering free COVID testing kits. There is a new health worry.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention looking into a possible spike in U.S. cases of infections among children caused by the bacteria known to lead to strep throat. Doctors say that bacteria can cause serious illness. The World Health Organization says there's been a spike in several European countries since September.
Fox's Jill Nato. The Biden administration's plans to end the Remain in Mexico policy for asylum seekers have been dashed again by a federal judge in Texas refusing to lift an earlier order that says the state of Texas deserves a full hearing on its lawsuit to keep the policy in place. Thursday night football, the 49ers beat the Seahawks 21-13, clinching the NFC West title. America is listening to Fox News.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas loan with an annual percentage interest rate as low as 5.99% and up to $50,000. And with the Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you can have the flexibility of using your money when you want to, where you want to. My Christmas loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas merrier. Member FDIC, equal opportunity lender. Credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
An Afghan soldier who worked with American forces during the war in Afghanistan is facing deportation from the U.S. for sneaking into the country.
Abdul Wasi Safi was trained by the U.S. military to be an elite Special Forces commando in Afghanistan. When the last U.S. plane left Kabul, Safi went into hiding, moving from safe house to safe house arranged by U.S. veterans. Now Abdul Wasi sits in a Texas prison facing deportation back to Kabul. He described a year-long treacherous journey through 10 countries in which he was robbed, tortured, and beaten. On September 30th, after months of trying to use a special immigrant visa to enter the country legally, Abdul Wasi crossed over the Rio Grande into the United States. A Border Patrol agent found him after following his footprints and charged him with a federal crime for illegally entering the country.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon reports Abdul Wasi has a court hearing on January 10th. Anxious moments in the Far East. A small earthquake reported very near North Korea's nuclear testing site, but South Korea's meteorological agency assesses the quake was natural in origin. A tourist campground in Malaysia has been buried under tons of mud and debris from a landslide. 16 people have been killed, another 17 are missing, but 53 people have been rescued. As the holidays come rushing toward us, travel is picking up, but there still are some deals to be had.
AAA predicts 2022 will be the third busiest year for travel in more than 2 decades, estimating that from December 23rd to January 2nd, more than 112 million people will venture 50 miles or more away from home. AAA says the busiest and most expensive day to fly is expected to be this Saturday, but there will be some really good fares on Monday and Tuesday. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
All 3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pica's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizama. Put the power of Pica's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pica's Best listeners with Pica's Best broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pica's Best.
Pacific Points is turning 2 years, and we're giving away 2 million points. Imagine what you could do when you win up to 2 years worth of free Shell fuel, Foodies products, or rebates on your IT&E bill. Receive entries into our monthly and grand prize drawings when you sign up for Pacific Points. Earn and redeem points at Shell, Foodies, and IT&E when you refer your friends, and more. Go to PacificPoints.com for details and see more ways to enter. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Well, another outstanding halftime show produced by our producer here, Jose. Great job again, Jose. And, of course, we run the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery at the end of the show. And, Jose, why don't you remind the folks out there in Tailgater Land how they, too, could have their pictures on the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery.
For those who are viewing this program on YouTube or the stream on Facebook, there is a link that I just set up that goes directly to the purveyor. However, you can point your browsers to www.thepoint.gu, and that's the official website of this radio station. Go to the picture with the T-shirt and the beard, click on that link. The link will take you to the purveyor, order your T-shirt, and when it arrives, rip open that package, don't tear the shirt, put the shirt on, take a selfie, and send that selfie to the Point's WhatsApp at 671-797-8255.
And you, too, can be in the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery. Think of the bragging rights.
Mm-hmm.
Think of whipping out your phone or your lap or your iPad at your local bar or restaurant and saying, hey, you know what? It's about 5 o'clock. I want you to see how important I am. Play that big halftime show and show them Rogues Gallery. Okay, I'm going to wrap up Holly Ruskin here. Holly laid out all of the things that the government's responsibility to prevent abortion. You know, the morality of the whole thing is that the government is immoral because they're not doing all of the things that Holly Ruskin says they should do. And then she wraps it up with this: without funding the above, how can anyone demand that the most marginalized of our community be forced to have a child? Now, are the most marginalized of our community every pregnant woman? I thought she told us who the marginalized ones were at the beginning. So is she now narrowing the scope of her rant to just marginalized women? Point number one. Point number two, I don't know. I suppose it's possible to force someone to have a child. That was the case with, remember when Gina Campos wanted me to do that story about the mother and the child who was a product of rape? Yeah, they actually forced that woman to have the child. Remember that?
I didn't read the story, but I remember her comment.
But it's a pretty rare occurrence. Now, once again, when Holly says, how can anyone demand that the most marginalized of our community be forced to have a child? This is the newspeak, George Orwellian language. Forced means not allowed to kill the child. That's what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A prohibition against killing translates into forced to have a child. And then she goes on to say, none of this is addressed in Bill 291. Well, once again, even if you had a senator that wanted to put this in a bill, you can't put all that stuff in a bill. There's a rule in the legislature called germaneness. And every bill must address a single subject. You can't have a bill that would provide free birth control for women, along with a section that would build a new hospital. So even if somebody wanted to, you couldn't do that. But that's really not an important aspect of this whole thing. The important thing is that what Holly wants to do is have the government take over, and so that a woman would have no responsibility whatsoever for raising her child. And of course, we already know that being pro-abortion, whether the women who are pro-abortion realize it or not, is an anti-male responsibility, because it's a tremendous break for irresponsible men, because they can say, well, you know, I don't care what she does, but she can always have an abortion.
And it was evidenced by the caller we had, who was told that the closing of the blue bar,
the blue room,
yeah, made a big, huge dent in his profits for abortions.
He lost a lot of money because the blue room, which was in effect a whorehouse.
and eventually forced abortions on their workers who became pregnant.
Exactly. Yeah. But none of those Blue House gals were forced to have children. So that's what the aim here is, and it ties in so closely with the whole neo-Marxist idea. Destroy the nuclear family. The state takes over all aspects of child rearing, education, etc., so that in a couple of generations we wind up with what they call socialist man. Who the word atomized was used in Shapiro's column. Everyone is just like every other one. They're just like atoms.
Well, that's the irony of this whole movement, this neo-feminist movement, is that I don't think they understand how misogynist they're being in the sense that they're taking away that which is inherent in a female, which is reproduction, which is childbearing, which is nurturing a human for the first 9 months of its life before it comes into this world. Men can't do that, but they're taking that away from themselves to be like men.
At the same time, pretending that men can do it.
Pretending that men, absolutely.
And a lot of men pretend.
This is so hilarious and sad at the same time.
Well, I mentioned earlier that, logic plays no part in any of this. Like with Maneka. Maneka, you can't go wrong in being a contrarian when Maneka says something, because it's going to be pretty illogical. Okay, wrapping this up then. Senators, I urge you to listen to your constituents. Senators, I urge you to listen to tall tales. Gather information and provide funding to help the most marginalized, those with beating hearts, to be supported. Yeah. Now, she also, babies don't have. Remember, for so long, it wasn't even a baby; it was just a lump of flesh.
Oh, that's right. They keep changing the parameters when science kept getting more specific.
Yeah, and we came along with things like ultrasound images and things like that. Okay, then she has a call to action. Please, people of Guam, whatever your personal view is on abortion, call on our senators to say no to Bill 291 and instead do their jobs to help those most in need in Guam. And I think that's exactly what the senators that are in favor of 291 think they're doing. Those most in need are the innocent, helpless children that run the risk of getting killed by their mothers.
60 million babies. I call that marginalized.
Yeah. Okay, next we've got Doug versus aliens on the card. Doug being our Attorney General-elect, who is replacing Levin in January. And Doug spoke at the Rotary Club of Guam, and this is what he said. This is the gist of his remarks. Doug Moylan is looking at deportation as a way of freezing up space in the island's overcrowded prison. On Thursday afternoon, Moylan spoke to the Rotary Club to discuss what the Office of the Attorney General will be forced on his upcoming term, as you were focused on his upcoming term, policies and proposals he called the Moylan Doctrine. Good idea. Moylan, who was also Guam's first elected AG, ran on a platform of being the toughest AG on crime. The slogan translates to placing drug abusers, meth in particular, in prison instead of allowing them to go through rehab or be released immediately after being charged. An attendee asked Moylan how the Department of Corrections would be able to house more prisoners, considering it's well known the current facility is in need of new upgrades and increased capacity. According to the Post files, Governor Leon Guerrero and lawmakers approved partial financing to begin up to $80 million worth of construction for a new facility and signed a bond bill for the project into law in October 2021. In response to the question at the Rotary meeting, Moylan agreed a new facility is needed because releasing a meth addict is like playing Russian roulette. From an AG's office perspective, we cannot be looking at, because there's a backlog in the system, we're not going to keep you in jail, Moylan said. Especially with meth addicts. You're playing Russian roulette with a meth addict. You're hoping that this person is going to follow a piece of paper and not jump the fence and rob or burglarize your neighbor when you release him, said Moylan. Or worse. Or worse. Another solution to freeing up prison space, Moylan said, is related to another issue he looks to spearhead over the next 4 years: deportation of foreign criminals. The problem remains that, first of all, let us look at it practically. Get those people that are not U.S. citizens in there out of Guam. Free up the beds and get them out, Moylan said. He then explained what he planned to ensure a deportation can occur and thus free up the prisons. I'm going to speak with DOC about freeing up the beds, deport ones out there that we can, work with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And also there's a deputy provision within federal law that can deputize federal officers, the Attorney General, so they can actually arrest these illegals and incarcerate them. And I'm going to see whether or not that deputization allows deportation. Prior to being elected this year, Moylan previously served as Guam's AG, etc. Okay, let's just talk about deportation. First of all, I'll tell you how it works. And this is not something new. This has been probably going on for 100 years. It was going on. It was in place when I was the director at DEPCOR. We had a very close relationship with a guy whose first name was Phil. It wasn't called ICE in those days. It was Immigration and Naturalization Service. So if we had an alien who was in prison when we got, say, within 6 weeks of his release, we would notify the guy at the Immigration and Naturalization, and they would send what was called a detainer, which meant let us know the exact day he's going to be released. You take him from his cell, you bring him out, and you give him to me, and I will then fill out some papers, etc., give him some papers, and I'll give him back to you, and you can lock him up again. Because there is no federal facility for detaining federal criminals, aliens, or whatever on the island. There's a contract between the Department of Corrections and Immigration and Naturalization, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, etc. So the guy goes back into custody. Maybe he'll go to the jail instead of the prison, but he's still in custody. He's entitled to a short deportation hearing before an immigration judge. When that's done, some papers are put together, etc. And he's ordinarily sent back to his home country. That's how it works. There's no magic in it. There's nothing to create. There's nothing new about it. Now, during the Calvo administration, apparently there was a shortage of knowledge because Governor Calvo set up this system where if there were people from the FSM who were in prison for crimes, he would go to the parole board and ask that they be paroled, but the condition was their parole was that they had to go back to where they came from, and they could never come back to Guam. And if they came back to Guam, they'd be violating their parole, and we'd throw them back in the pokey. And, of course, that meant that we had to pay for their ticket back to wherever they came from. And it was unnecessary because of the mechanism that I just described. So you can deport aliens that are incarcerated for serious crimes at no cost to the territory whatsoever. But here's the kicker. An alien can only be deported at the end of his sentence. He has to finish his sentence. So if you've got somebody in the pokey for 20 years for rape, you got to wait for 20 years before you can deport him. Now, Governor Calvo came up with a solution, parole. What is often kicked around and sometimes actually put in place, the governor of Guam has the absolute authority to pardon a criminal or to commute the sentence of a criminal. Now, commutation means this. Let's say you've got someone who committed murder one. He's in prison for life, no possibility of parole. The governor has the ability to commute that sentence to life with parole. Or he could commute it to 20 years. Or he could commute it to time served. He has that ability. So I think what the thought process is here, we'll commute the sentences of these aliens, work with and do the detainer thing, and then send them back to the FSM. I think that's what Doug is thinking about. That would work, but I kind of have a problem with that, because the fact that a person is from a foreign country could very well wind up serving as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Let's say you commit burglary on Guam. Maybe you're armed during the time you're doing it. You're sentenced to 8 years. We're overcrowded at the prison. So, in order to make space for somebody who's a more serious criminal than you are, the governor commutes your 8-year sentence to time served, and away you go back to Chuk or wherever you came from. I probably shouldn't zero in on Chuk, should I? You go back to wherever you came from. I wonder if that might be an incentive. Yeah, if you want to commit a crime, go to Guam, because they got this program. If you get convicted and the prison's still crowded, they'll just send you back home. No harm, no foul.
They'll pay for your ticket.
And they'll pay your way back home. So a little more thought needs to go into this. The mechanism is already there. The ICE will do the deportation once the sentence is finished. The governor has the ability to turn anybody, no matter how long his sentence is, loose. So I have a little problem though with the idea that if you're a foreigner, you get an easier deal than if you're a United States citizen who commits a crime. Let's head for Wrigley Field and the 7th inning stretch, Jose.
Christmas is a very special time, but it can also be a very hard time. For the foster children Harvest House serves, it can be difficult and painful being away from their families and siblings. During Harvest House's Christmas celebration event, we hope that siblings living in different foster homes can join together to share in Christmas joy. We need your help to provide all 600 plus foster children with Christmas gifts. Help us make this a memorable Christmas for each of them. Harvest House will be accepting gifts until December 14th. Contact us at 300-5433 or email harvest.house@hbcguam.net if you have questions or want a suggested gift list. That's 300-5433 or email harvest.house@hbcguam.net.
So here we are, Wrigley Field, world's most beautiful ballpark, and let's keep our fingers crossed that Wrigley gets the All-Star game this summer, and and that the governor of, or that the mayor of Chicago, who's capable of something like this, doesn't have the All-Star game transferred somewhere else because somebody in Chicago isn't woke enough. Somebody at Wrigley isn't woke enough. Okay, I want to go on to the next episode of Jeepgate here, but I notice I got somebody in the green room. It is none other than Senator Duenas. Okay, I really like the way Senator Duenas comes on the line, Jose. You know, Ron McNinch, what does he say? Hello.
Howdy, Bob. Howdy, Guam.
Oh, yeah. Howdy, Bob. Howdy, Guam. No, you're not the host. Yeah. Ron, if you're listening, listen to how Senator Duenas does it. He's really got it down pat. Good afternoon, Chris.
Howdy, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, and my favorite talk show host.
Hey, thank you very much, Chris. It's really nice that you called. So nice to talk to you.
I don't do that just to, of course, you know, I guess it does make me unique, but I just think that it's so important to recognize, you know, the service and the time and the effort that you put into getting your education, your JD, serving as a Marine. That's incredible. Serving our country, and of course, as a senator, you just had some amazing work that you did. And so I always regard it that when I see a governor, even a governor I didn't particularly care for, I always call him governor because you know, you give them their due, and I do it like that more than anything else. But I know it probably might irritate others when I say my favorite talk show host, but sorry.
It doesn't irritate me, Chris. Keep on doing it.
And I do that just simply because, you know, your show is it's so informative, and the education that you bring to the people, and people's ability to even just engage with you, and you know, even if they lose an argument, they learn something. And so, you know, so today, unfortunately, we didn't get the 10 votes we wanted on the passage of the Heartbeat Act, but it passed, and I still think that's remarkable in terms of all of the, you know, opposition and that really crazy letter you read. When I read that, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. But I like the way you broke that down in any way. So that's where we're at. We also did recess until the 29th, time certain. So there will be time to come back and maybe fruitless effort, but upon the veto, attempt and override, probably make one more statement on that and other bills. And so that's where we're at. I wanted to comment a little bit on this issue that you've been talking about the deportation and Doug Mullen's approach. But any thoughts on the Heartbeat Act and what took place?
Well, I think that the value of what you've done is it gives all of us out here who are anti-aborts some hope for optimism, because something we went for so long and couldn't do what we wanted to do. Tim was successful with the Esperanza group in getting 8 bills through, but you know, it's the beginning of what I would call momentum.
I agree.
And we've got to keep that momentum going forward.
I agree. And I got to tell you that the gallery was a little bit more full today, and they shuffled around and made a few noises, but otherwise were within respect of the House. But you know, certainly when the final count was put out, you know, that it had passed by 8-7. There was several boos, but they're quieted real quick. So I gotta say that there was some rustling around afterwards for a little while, but it looks like Sergeant Arms and everybody else, you know, got everybody escorted out and kept the dignity of the hall.
You said 8-7, Chris?
Yes, 8-7. So all of the same senators, Your Honor, that voted to send it down. Unfortunately, and I'm not quite sure why, but we did lose Tito on this one, and he became a quarterback.
Mm.
So I'm not sure what happened there, but you know, But the 8, you know, I mean, I agree with you. I think we've set something in momentum here. It is other than the Bell's Law, unless you can correct me, and it is the really only serious, close to full anti-abortion bill that's been passed in the legislature since that bill. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct. There were 8 bills that were passed that made getting an abortion more difficult, and a really big one that provided penalties for not turning in your abortion reports to the Registrar of Vital Statistics. And as Tim pointed out in Jungle Watch, when abortion occurs in silence, there's not much opposition to it. So you got to get it up there in the skyline, which you guys have really done with the Heartbeat Act.
Right. And I think also the one I know that I voted on, I may have voted on that one as well. I'm not sure whether that was the 31st or 32nd, but I know that at the time, Senator, Senator Uggan, I know that there was so much pushback on the informed consent too, and I can tell why. I mean, you know what I mean? If you think about it, that just came in my mind, Your Honor. You know, the informed consent was kind of like a precursor to the Heartbeat Act, right? Because the informed consent was ensuring that individuals had to at least read the literature. And I think, you know, they were really against that, the pro-aborts, because, you know, they just wanted to say, hey, get in here, you know, we're going to take care of this, you know, we're going to, you know, get you eliminate your problem. And but you can imagine a mother, a pregnant woman, and I'm just going to say it like that because there's no other way to say it, you know, reading that literature and going, man, do I really want to do this? I know I voted for that for sure. And that was one of the landmark issues as well. You know, and if you think about it, kind of a segue to it, the heartbeat, you know, in terms of defining the heartbeat, and that's the way Tim Rohrs put it out. I mean, that was, and you said this, you know, the whole intent here was to really kind of bring this home in terms of elevating that issue. So, but moving on a little bit, you know, I debated in the governor's chambers when Governor Calvo was putting together that deport proposal. I don't disagree with you, Your Honor, on the issue of, you know, the get out of jail free card. I would make this caveat, and I just wanted to make sure you took this into consideration as well. When we debated this, for that very reason, the no return was what we considered the jail sentence. Because you're right in terms of an individual just going, well, I can commit a crime and, you know, I'll go through a procedure and they'll boot me out, being, you know, kind of that issue. But the no return, thou shalt not return, for most individuals in terms of where they're coming from, is a pretty serious penalty.
That's true. But of course, that whole mechanism was unnecessary because if the governor is willing to shorten the sentence, then a ICE deportation was available then, just like it is now.
Yeah, I think the thing is that what we were dealing with was ICE wasn't going to take the initiative. You know, they weren't going to implement. And I think this goes back to really the true tenets of the agreement, right? And you have this in the community whereby individuals who followed that whole, how that happened was, you know, the real three preconditions to, you know, the habitual resident, statute that you point out, and that was education, job opportunities, economic, as well as healthcare, and outside of the parameters that of a habitual resident, that not following and not being part of that agreement that was established for migration, you know, in and of itself, you know, what was, you know, it was probably assumed that to be deportable, but when Governor Calvo went several times to, you know, on the national level to talk to ICE officials and other, you know, other officials with regard to their official capacity to handle this, and, you know, stateside, they were just reluctant to go that far to consider the tenets of the compact. So it was like we had to do an action in order for them to do something.
But hold on a second, Chris. There's a difference between a deportation because someone has been convicted of a serious crime, as opposed to deportation for failing to live up to the conditions of habitual residence.
Correct.
And not living up to the conditions of habitual residence is not a crime. And I suspect that no one has ever been deported for that because, the mechanism just isn't there. ICE doesn't have investigators going out to find out who's laying under a coconut tree drinking beer instead of working. Nor do we. And even if we, it sounds good, but the difficulty of administration really stands in the way. But that's just totally different from deporting someone who committed a serious crime.
Correct. The line I was trying to draw there, that the serious crime obviously shows, and in most cases will show that they're completely not fulfilling any intention of being here for any good reason. Because I'll tell you, when you read the magistrate's report sometimes, and I mean, it's not a joke, but it's a little funny. I remember we used to go through it at Department of Youth Affairs. You got, Jane 1, Jane 2, Jane 3. I mean, you literally saw a revolving door of individuals that were constant and using the word habitual, were habitual offenders. And certainly weren't here for the reasons that avail. I understand your point, and I don't argue it. But the thing is that even under the situation whereby they violated the laws of Guam and were incarcerated or convicted of serious crimes and serving time, especially those individuals that really just, you could read the paper every other month and they're in the system, that they're showing that they really have no good to our community. And the fact that they get away with it here where they have a support system, because probably they're dependent upon other family members and the like, to where they just do what they want to do. An exile back to a place where life is not so easy is in and of itself a sentence, and I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, I got you, Chris. So,
hey, thanks.
So thanks a lot thanks for the report, Chris, and then keep fighting the good fight. I know you will, but I just want to be your cheerleader, okay?
Will do. You know it, and we'll see what happens at disposition of this bill, but to be continued in the 37th.
Thank you, Chris. Senator Chris Duenas, Minority Leader, fighting the good fight. Next item on the card here is Jeepgate. It's more of Chief Ignacio's project to make sure that when the red Jeep drove through the front window of Jerry Kitchen, that there was no cover up from the get-go, right? Okay, this is a story that ran in the Post. A defendant in a red Jeep crashed into Jerry Kitchen, said the defendant did not drink before the incident. The trial for Nikita Uggan, who has been charged with driving while impaired, is a misdemeanor connected to a red Jeep crashing into Jerry Kitchen on February 25 last year, continued Thursday morning with one of the passengers in the vehicle, Tracy Montanani, testifying. Montanani was called as a witness Wednesday and answered questions from Assistant Attorney General Grant Olin before answering questions from David Lujan. Lujan's line of questioning involved asking Montanani to recall being interviewed by the AG's office earlier this year. Lujan asked Montanani what she said in her interview, and particularly whether Uggan drank that night. Previous testimony at the trial revealed Montanani and Uggan alone, as they were along with other women, were seen on camera drinking at a Hagatnya bar, the venue shortly before the crash. You never told them Ms. Uggan drank alcohol that night, David asked. Lujan asked. Quote, I never told them Miss Uggan drank. Yes, Montanani replied before explaining she didn't remember much when being interviewed because of the time that passed and also because she had too much to drink. In Lujan's questioning, he mentioned a report made by the prosecution's office relating to Montanani's interview. Matanani was able to review it herself and testified that there was an error which indicated the Jeep was owned by her. Following cross-examination, Olin had the opportunity to ask Matanani questions again, the first being whether her statement in the report was true. Quote, Nikita was the driver. I sat in the back seat. I heard loud noises. It was bumpy, and I was yelling, "Stop the car!" That I had a lot to drink, and that I was in and out. I believe that was typed there, Matanani said. Olin followed up on Matanani saying earlier that Uggan did not drink alcohol prior to the crash. I believe she didn't drink alcohol, Matanani said. Have you seen the surveillance video from the venue the night you were there? Olin followed up. No, she replied. Olin suggested he play the recording, but was met by an objection from Lujan. Judge Tolentino, however, old rule election allowed the video to be played, and which Olin stopped and started to show the different times Uggan was drinking. At one point in the video, Matanani confirmed Uggan took a shot with another passenger in the vehicle in the night of the crash of off-duty police officer Janine Tutlahi. Now, an earlier article said that they had was 6 or 7 shots of something at the venue. Okay, so far, every witness that the prosecution has called has given favorable testimony for David Lujan, the defense counsel. So my prediction, great Karnak, my prediction is that David Lujan won't have to call any witnesses because he can shore up his whole defense with the prosecution's witnesses. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs, and then we'll go to Norway after that.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas loan with an annual percentage interest rate as low as 5.99% and up to $50,000. And with the Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you can have the flexibility of using your money when you want to, where you want to. My Christmas loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas merrier. Member FDIC, equal opportunity lender. Credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
So here we are in Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. 6 more furlongs, and I'll be crossing that finish line to wrap up not only another day, but another whole week of Tall Tales. Jose and I are not looking forward to this. 2 miserable days for Jose and I. 70 hours before from the end of this show till we get back to our tailgaters at 1600 on Monday. It's going to be tough, Jose, but somehow we'll stumble through it like we always do. Okay, next item on the card is, now we're going from Louisville, Kentucky to Norway. And the next item on the card is called Norway versus Turfs. Now you're thinking you know what turf is, right? It's where you have a nice grassy piece of ground, that's turf. Well, this is a different kind of turf. I'm sure everybody knows what Norway is. Norway is a wonderful place. I've spent some time there, from the bottom of Norway from all the way to the top, and it is a great place. But like so much of the world, the virus of wokeism has infected Turkey also. This is an article that I got from, this is another Jonathan Turley column. My favorite columnist, Jonathan Turley. Norwegian filmmaker under criminal investigation for challenging transgender identity. Man, that's a serious crime. We have a new assault on free speech in Europe. Tanya Gevyan, a lesbian filmmaker and actress, is now facing up to 3 years in prison. A lesbian filmmaker actress. Now get this. Her crime, saying on Facebook that a man cannot become a lesbian.
Just for that.
What do you think? Isn't that, what was that word that I just wrote down, Jose?
Turf?
No, for the opposite of misogyny.
Misandry.
Yeah. Isn't that misandry?
Very close.
Yeah. Isn't it misandry to say that if man cannot become a lesbian? What if he really wants to become a lesbian?
How dare you?
Man, I can understand why the Norwegians are angry about that. Yeah, the lady's crime, saying on Facebook, of all places, that a man cannot become a lesbian. Lady was put under investigation for making the comments about Norwegian activist Christine Jentoft, a transgender female that often refers to herself as a lesbian mother. I wonder if we could hook her up with Holly Rustic. On Facebook, Gyevyan wrote, "It's just as impossible for men to become a lesbian as it is for men to become pregnant." Whoa. Wow. Talk about doubling down.
She's asking for the death penalty.
She is, yeah. Maybe even worse than that. Yeah.
A luncheon with Holly Rustic?
Yeah. Yeah, and then the lady goes on to say the lesbian writer goes on to say, men are men regardless of their sexual fetishes. Whew. Heresy. Blasphemy.
Relegated to a fetish.
Yeah. This is obviously protected speech in the United States for now. Yeah. However, in many countries, it's not a criminal offense to express an opposing view on gender identity. Yevtov had previously brought criminal charges against those who questioned his sexual identification. Free speech in Norway and much of Europe is in free fall. In 2020, the country amended its penal code that added gender identity and gender expression as protected categories from hate speech. Those expressing contrary views face up to 3 years in jail. Not only does the law criminalize public comments, but you can receive a year in jail even for comments made in private.
What?
Yeah. So, this lady Yenta says to her partner, "Psst, psst, psst, come over here. I want to whisper something into your ear. Men cannot become lesbians." And later on, they have a lover's quarrel, Jose. And the partner says, "I'm going to get her. I'm going to go to the cops and tell the cops what she whispered in her ear, and she'll spend a year in the pokey." The impact of these laws was evident in a recent poll of German citizens. Only 18% of Germans feel free to express their opinions in public. You will keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you. We have always. 59% of Germans did not even feel expressing themselves in private, free to express themselves in private among friends. And just 17% felt free to express themselves on the internet. I wonder how many of them feel free to listen to tall tales. We have been discussing the ongoing controversies and prosecutions over what are called trans exclusionary radical feminists, TERF. Now you know what a TERF is. A trans exclusionary radical feminist. Now, the next question is, can a man be a TERF? I don't know. The term is used for feminists who have voiced opposition to transgender policies and laws that they believe erase or marginalize biological women. The most famous such figure is author J.K. Rowling. She's the one that wrote all of the Harry Potter stuff, famous author, who has not only been the subject of a global cancel campaign, but was recently listed by BuzzFeed with figures like cult leader Jim Jones, Benedict Arnold, and O.J. Simpson as villains.
O.J. Simpson?
Yeah. In 2019, we discussed the prosecution of Finnish Member of Parliament Päivi Räsänen. She was critical of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland for its support of the Helsinki LGBT Pride events in June. She spoke out against the involvement while highlighting a quote from Romans 1:24 through 27, which reads, "Therefore God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served and created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised." Amen. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty of their error. That's what the lady read. In March, both were acquitted of all charges in their cases. Norway is a visited example of how this movement to criminalize speech is continuing. The left has embraced censorship and criminalization to those with opposing views, even views based on religious values. Going back to Biden's speech, huh? It is a movement that continues to gain support in America. However, citizens need only to look to Europe to see what awaits us if we continue on this course. It is no accident that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, figures like Hillary Clinton turned to Europe to censor the views of fellow Americans. The anti-free speech movement has taken hold of the European Union. The Grevion case is only the latest skirmish in this existential study for free speech in the West. Well, I'm going to do my part here about free speech. I'm going to keep jabbering on this microphone every afternoon, Monday through Friday, from 4 to 6, and I'm going to tell the truth as far as I can discern what the truth is. I'm never going to tell you that the rice is red when it's obviously orange. So what do we got? About 4 minutes to go, Jose? I've got a next item on the card is BJ versus the inaugural. I've got GRMC versus doctors. Maybe that's kind of short. Maybe I'll pick that up since I know I've got a doctor listening in Pensacola. This is an ad that I found online from a place called WeatherbyHealthcare.com. And they're offering a job in Dededo, Guam for anesthesiology. Monday through Friday. Licensing assistance available. ICU experience not required, so on. And this is what it said. Anesthesiologist needed for hospital on Guam for 40-hour work week with some on call. Population 200,000. Malpractice, assistance with air travel, and 2 weeks temporary housing. Approximately 3,300 miles west of Hawaii, 1,500 miles east of Philippines, 1,550 south of Japan. The island of Guam is the westernmost territory of the United States and one of the leading tourist destinations in the Western Pacific. With a population of 200,000, Guam is truly a tropical island paradise. I kind of knew that, Jose. Yeah, if I were a doctor, I'd sign up for this. Waterfalls, rivers, and bays abound throughout Guam's central and southern area. Luxury five-star hotels line the Tumon Bay beachfront, and Guam's unique duty-free status make it a shopper's paradise. The beaches of Tumon Bay offer gleaming white sand and crystal clear warm waters for swimming, snorkeling, or just relaxing and enjoying the fantastic sunsets over the Philippine Sea. With its year-round warmth and crystal clear waters, Guam is one of the most desirable scuba destinations in the world. Guam offers 7 world-class golf courses open to the public and 2 military courses. Guam has a number of water parks and beach clubs that offer jet skis, windsurfing, kayaking, paddle boats, pools, water slides, and various other water sports. Other popular Guam outdoor leisure activities include hiking, skydiving, parasailing, deep-sea fishing. So they tell you, if you're an anesthesiologist, they tell you just a little bit about the job, but they tell you what a wonderful place Guam is. And anybody out there, any anesthesiologist or doctor who's tuning in, that description really kind of tells it like it is. Okay, so welcome to Guam, anesthesiologists. It's time for us here on Tall Tales to say goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
No government shutdown this weekend. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The threat averted last evening when the Senate passed the bill to extend government spending authority for another week, while lawmakers consider a bill covering the rest of fiscal 2023.
House Republicans had said they wanted to extend short-term spending into next year so they could have a bigger say in the budget when they get the majority in the new session. But GOP Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has said passing this bill now is better than the alternatives.
Fox's Jill Nato. The Senate has also passed the defense spending bill. It will give raises to service members and end the military's COVID vaccine mandate. COVID deaths in the U.S. are beginning to rise again, according to the White House response coordinator, Dr. Ashish Jha, but he says there are no plans to return to COVID restrictions.
There's a whole host of tools that people can use to keep themselves or families safe. Testing, masking, improving indoor air quality, being in better ventilated places. And treatments, of course. So we think that is the strategy of the administration, that we want to encourage people to use those tools.
Mandatory face masks will return to public schools in Philadelphia for at least the first 10 days following the holiday break. The legal maneuvering over the Remain in Mexico asylum policy continues.
Well, the Supreme Court said in June that President Biden had the right to end the Trump-era asylum program that required some non-Mexicans to be sent back to Mexico to await immigration proceedings. It ultimately sent the case back to a district court in Texas. Now, that court has issued a stay in the administration's efforts to end the policy as legal challenges from Texas and Missouri continue to play out, noting the Department of Homeland Security failed to consider the policy's, quote, deterrent effects on illegal border crossings. DHS has said the policy imposes unjustifiable human costs. Meanwhile, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton celebrated the ruling, tweeting, Biden's open border agenda won't survive my legal attacks.
Fox's Sean Lanchill. America is listening to Fox News.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. There is always someone doing something stupid somewhere. Dive deeper than the headlines and the party lines as I take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on FoxNewsPodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
A bust of a controversial Supreme Court justice will be removed from the U.S. Capitol.
House lawmakers passed a bill that would remove a bust of former Chief Justice Roger Taney, who authored the Dred Scott decision of 1857, ruling that black people could not be U.S. citizens.
Taney's ruling denied black American citizenship, upheld slavery, and contributed, frankly, to the outbreak of the Civil War.
Majority Leader Steny Hoyer led the push in the House on this legislation after the bill passed the Senate. Taney's bust will be removed within 45 days of President Biden signing the bill into law. It will be replaced by a bust of Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
California's Air Resources Board has voted to approve an ambitious plan to achieve carbon neutrality in the state by 2045. The plan has a goal of cutting emissions in the energy, transportation, and agriculture sectors and capturing carbon from the atmosphere. Critics say the plan doesn't go far enough and has loopholes that big business could exploit. Nearly a year and a half since tragedy struck, there's been a government shakeup in Surfside, Florida.
The town where 98 people died last year in a beachfront condominium collapse. There was little explanation given for the departures this week of top administrator and town manager Andrew Hyatt, his assistant town manager Jason Green, and police chief Rogelio Torres, who did say in his resignation letter he plans to spend more time with his family. Officials in the enclave just north of Miami Beach putting out a news release saying all departments continue town business as usual. Meanwhile, the federal agency investigating the collapse of the Champlain Towers South hasn't yet released conclusions about the tragedy. Lillian Wu, Fox News.
Interest rate worries triggered a big sell-off Thursday on Wall Street. The Dow fell 764 points. NASDAQ dropped 360. The S&P 500 closed nearly 100 points lower. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Oh, KFC, oh, KFC, original and crispy. Happy holidays, folks. Colonel Sanders here. KFC is here to help feed your holiday hunger with our 6 or 12-piece family meal. They both come with your choice of our delicious KFC sides, biscuits, and a personal gift from the Colonel. 2 free glass food containers. Have a safe and happy holiday season from KFC Guam. It's finger-licking good.
Here's a fun fact for you. The average chameleon can point their eyes in 2 different directions. On the other hand, the average human can't. So unless you're a chameleon, there's absolutely no way you can focus on texting and driving at the same time. So don't do it, unless you're a chameleon.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
We could see setbacks along the way as well. We shouldn't take anything for granted. But what is clear is my economic plan is working, and we're just getting started.
I think we'll see a substantial reduction in inflation in the year ahead. It's going to take a year. Well, I believe by the end of next year, you will see much lower inflation.
So signs are pointing in the right direction. We do not appear to be in a recession at this point. The data do not indicate that.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show.
behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America. Coming up next, our final news roundup and information overload hour.
All right, news roundup, information overload hour, 800-9401-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. Bibi Netanyahu, soon to be prime minister now for the third time. He is already the longest-serving prime minister in the history of Israel. And for many, many years, I've described Bibi as the sole voice of reason and moral clarity in the world. And I don't think we had a better period of time in terms of modern-day strength than the alliance that was forged between the United States and Israel during the presidency of Donald Trump. I mean, things that I thought would be unimaginable happened during those years, including the Abraham Accords, moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, its rightful place. Also recognizing the Golan Heights, some things that America should have done many, many times before, some things that many candidates had promised but never delivered on, and adding to an alliance that I never thought I would see in my lifetime either, and that was Israel, the U.S., the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Emirates, all against this threat of Iranian hegemony. But it happened. Anyway, with the recent elections in Israel, Bibi will be back in power very shortly. He has a coalition government, probably the most conservative in many decades, and the prime minister is with us now. By the way, he has his brand new book out, an autobiography, and it's called Bibi, My Story, and what a life Bibi has led. Mr. Prime Minister, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. It's wonderful to talk to you, Sean. Good to talk to you.
I look at the world today, and I see Iran in pursuit of their nuclear ideology, their nuclear weapons, and married to their sick ideology would be a very scary scenario for the world. I see China now, their geopolitical ambitions with Taiwan. We see what's happening and unfolding in Ukraine with Vladimir Putin. All of these things together concern me, and I feel that the United States has abdicated its role as the leader and the advocate for freedom. In other words, Americans, especially an American president, should be speaking out in favor of the freedom movement that is unfolding in Iran, or the freedom movement that was unfolding inside of China, or the freedom movement that is unfolding as people resist Vladimir Putin's draft to go into fight in Ukraine. And we don't hear a word from an American president, but I would expect we'd hear from you.
Well, first, let me just make an observation. The Arab citizens of Israel are full citizens, and quite a few of them, by the way, vote for us. The party that you're talking about is one portion of that electorate that is beholden to the Muslim Brotherhood. And you're quite right. The coalition, the incredible coalition that they had in the government that's going out that we defeated was in fact rejected by so many Israelis precisely because that particular party doesn't accept the existence of a Jewish state. In fact, of a Jewish democratic state. They have other views, as you can imagine. That's why one of the reasons they lost. They wanted the people of Israel resoundingly decided that they want the kind of government that we have led that takes care of all its citizens, Jews and Arabs alike, but stands up to the kind of aggression that you're talking about, specifically from Iran. In the Middle East, and certainly in the case of Israel, 90% of the security problems, the terror, the aggression is coming from Iran. And the thing that has changed, I think, is that while I spoke, sometimes I felt I was, speaking against the wind vis-a-vis, the dominant powers in the world that didn't see the threat from Iran as I did, didn't see the threat of Iran becoming a nuclear power that would threaten everybody, not just Israel and our Arab neighbors, but also the United States. They chant death to Israel, death to the United States. And I think that I'm not alone anymore. I think that in many ways, first of all, most of the American people agreed with me even then. But now, I think a vast amount of the international opinion sees the Iranian regime for what it is. It's been unmasked for the terror regime that subjugates its people, that murders men and women on the streets, and that must not have nuclear weapons, and its aggression must be stopped. I think that has brought, that's my sense, Sean, there's a change in the way Western governments perceive it, and I think there is a change, I sense that change also in Washington. I think there's an understanding that you simply cannot give them, cannot pave their way with gold, with hundreds of billions of dollars of sanctions relief in a flawed nuclear deal where that would simply pave their way to a nuclear arsenal in a few years. I think that's changed, and I welcome that change. And I certainly intend to speak to President Biden about it and see what we can do for our common interests. We have a common interest, especially the democratic countries of the world, to prevent this tyranny, this bloody tyranny, from having nuclear weapons that will threaten all of us.
You're not just the longest-serving prime minister in Israel's history. I would argue, and I think I have a very strong argument, that you've been the most consequential by far. You know a lot of these players on the world stage that I view as being hostile regimes. You know, and you have met with Vladimir Putin. You know President Xi, and you've met with the likes of him. And I'm watching their maneuvers right now, and it's very unsettling. What do you think? What do you think is going on right now in the world? And the one thing that maybe scares me the most is this alliance that has emerged between China, Iran, and Russia. That concerns me.
Well, that would concern me too. It does actually, but it concerns everyone. Anyone who's concerned with the stability and peace of the world wants to see a strong alliance between like-minded countries. And I think that I write in my book quite a bit about the fact that both our countries, Israel and the United States, are countries that were founded with a purpose. Our purpose was to realize the dream of ages, the ingathering of the exiles prophesied in the Bible, the resurrection of the Jewish national life in our ancient homeland, the land of Israel, and in our ancient capital, Jerusalem. That we achieved. But I think the United States was also founded with a purpose. You know, we're the original promised land. You're the new promised land. And the promise of the new promised land was to be the guardian of liberty in the world. And I think that, I wouldn't shortchange the United States. I think that fundamentally, across the vast swathe of the American people, they believed that America is a guardian of liberty, that the freedoms that we enjoy are precious, but they have to be guarded. If there's one thing I say, and I develop this in a number of places in my book, I think what we have realized is it's not enough to be good, it's not enough to be moral, it's not even enough to be morally superior. You have to be very strong, because history doesn't really give the good guys any advantage if they're not strong enough to overcome or to resist the bad guys and the aggressive powers in history. And I think what is required and may be happening is that the democracies, precisely in this unstable world, changing world, realize that they have to go back to basics. And the basics is we have to have the power and resolve to defend ourselves against aggressive regimes that don't share our values.
I'm not asking you to criticize Joe Biden. What I'm asking you is the world standing up to the most hostile regimes with strength? Because I think we need a lot more strength than we're showing now. I'm putting it nicely because I don't want to drag you into American politics.
Well, look, I've known Joe Biden, President Biden, for 40 years, and he's a personal friend. We sometimes disagreed, but I think that he believes in the ideal of freedom, no less than other presidents. I think right now the jury is out.